Welcome to this Edexcel A-level paper 2 ethics anthology video tutorial on Aristotle's Nicomachean ethics, and this is chapter 2 of his Nicomachean ethics, and this is section 8. Let's read it and then we'll unpack it. So too is it then in the case of temperance and courage and other virtues, for the man who flies from and fears everything and does not stand his ground against anything becomes a coward, and a man who fears nothing at all but goes to meet every danger becomes rash. And similarly, the man who indulges every pleasure and abstains from none becomes self-indulgent, while the man who shuns every pleasure and bores, as boors do, becomes in a way insensible. Temperance and courage are destroyed by excess and defect and preserved by the mean. Let's consider this. So what is Aristotle's case example of moral virtue here? Well, he's really using two examples, and he begins with courage, and then secondly he goes on to temperance. Let's start with courage. He's arguing here, if we fear everything, that's a deficiency, a lack of courage, a vice of deficiency. We become cowards. However, if we run towards danger, we exhibit another vice, the vice of excess. We become reckless. Fairly straightforward. Now, in the background and developing in other parts of his writing here, he thinks there are four kinds of people typically. And he uses this little phrase, indulgences. And this word is the man who indulges. Well, what kind of man who indulges in every pleasure and abstains from none? Well, he thinks that some people are virtuous, who would do the right thing by their reason. I've had enough. I know when I've had enough. The virtuous man says he does it by his own reason. I am full. I don't need any more. The continent person struggles and might need help. So at the dinner table, you might say, that's a lot on your plate there. Are you really sure you're going to eat all of that? And the continent person would realize straight away, you're right. The incontinent person rarely does the virtuous thing, often doing the vicious thing, and needs very strict help. Otherwise, they would be too indulgent. So you might only offer them half a plate of food, as it were. But the vicious person only ever does the wrong thing. If you offered him half a plate of food, he would complain bitterly and maybe go and get some more from the kitchen or something. What does Aristotle think is the process of moral reasoning? The process of moral reasoning. Well, in the passage here, he talks about searching for the mean, the equilibrium between excess and defect or deficiency. And he thinks these are preserved by the mean. The good person, the virtuous person, knows to do this. Others need help and some never do it. And he thinks we can only act virtuously if we cultivate, if we develop the characteristics, the character strengths, the traits associated with each of 12 virtues that we've mentioned earlier, that he thinks are moral virtues, as well as other virtues, intellectual virtues. So, in his example of the moral virtue of courage, if we want to be courageous, we have to learn to behave well in the face of fear. In the example of temperance, we need to, in this, when we're offered and we have the opportunity for too much, to indulge ourselves. It's there. It's an opportunity. We resist that because we know what is good for us. So, what do all these examples show what he is thinking about? Well, courage and temperance and so on. Well, these are examples to show why the golden mean, his theory of the golden mean, is necessary. If you don't have a mean, you're not going to have people who have an appropriate amount of courage. It's a practical thing here. If you don't have a golden mean, you're going to have indulgent, infantile people who don't know how to moderate their actions. So in the middle of this section, we've been talking about the excess of virtue, which is the vice of excess, and the deficiency of virtue, which is the vice of deficiency. And we see vices more generally as practices, behaviors, habits we consider immoral, sinful, criminal, rude, taboo, depraved, degraded as a society. Why is that the case? And Aristotle's golden mean gives us a rationale for it. Some vices are minor, can just refer to a fault, negative character trait, a defect, a bad or unhealthy habit. Some vices are associated with transgressions of character, temperament, and morality. So, section 8.